It's not a secret. We live in a world where everything seems controversial, and everything controversial, well, makes most of us feel uncomfortable. That's because most of us lack the tools we need to navigate through that tension that exists between differing perspectives. As a result, we're left with a world where our voice has to be louder, stronger, more important than anybody that thinks differently than ourselves. But a person that's only focused on being right and being heard might miss valuable insight from an alternative perspective that, frankly, they might not have been listening for in the first place. Additionally, we know that a person's ability and power to speak up in a discussion might differ depending on their race, their socioeconomic status, or their sexual orientation. This is a huge problem if you want to live in a democracy, because a democracy is enriched through that exchange of different perspectives, especially different perspectives on social issues. So as a teacher, how do I get students to listen? And how do I get students to speak up in difficult conversations? My research turns to art as a solution. You see, art integration is rooted in considering the artist's perspective, analyzing the world through a holistic lens, and encouraging empathetic social engagement. In other words, students are asked to think, research, and reflect on their own opinion before they create something that represents their voice, and then interact with something that represents the voices of others. This brings us to the picture on the screen. What you're looking at is a piece of artwork created by a student named Marco in Miss Moxley's 12th grade art class that was created during a unit that explored the roots of racism in their community. You see, for my study, I looked at teachers and students like Marco as they used art as a form of dialogue to engage with social issues, examine issues of power, establish a point of view, and engage with alternative perspectives. Students like Marco researched different perspectives, established their own point of view, and then created a visual like the one you see that represented their voice and opinion. Data showed that for Marco and his classmates, art served as a way for students to individually and collaboratively construct and contextualize social issues in their community. For Marco in particular, we looked at the ways that he deconstructed issues of power in his community and how those power structures forcibly silence indigenous populations. In his drawing, Marco made the decision to sew the indigenous woman's mouth shut as he came to the conclusion that he needed to represent art in a way that showed that the woman was forced to be silent and that the choice was not her own. Data also revealed that art served a crucial push for students as it served as a talking piece and a starting point to have some of these difficult conversations in the classroom. In Ms. Moxley's case, art was more than just a starting point. It was the dialogue itself through which students were communicating. This is important research because if we can teach students how to interact and engage with social issues through their artwork, then we can teach students how to interact and engage with social issues in their democracy. Thank you.